What happens when one of the biggest pop stars in the world walks onto one of daytime television's most outspoken talk shows expecting a friendly conversation about music, success, and her journey, but instead finds herself facing a question that completely changes the tone of the interview? Make sure to subscribe to Talk Show Fallout and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The cameras are already rolling inside the studio as the audience applauds and the panel settles into their seats. The energy in the room is lively, the kind of buzz that usually happens when a major celebrity guest is about to walk out. The hosts exchange smiles while the crowd claps louder as the introduction begins. Whoopi Goldberg looks toward the camera and smiles. "We're back," she says calmly, her voice steady as always. "And joining us today is someone you definitely know. She's a Grammy-winning artist, actress, and one of the biggest voices in pop music right now. Please welcome Ariana Grande." The audience erupts into loud cheers. Ariana Grande walks onto the stage smiling, waving to the crowd as she hugs each of the hosts before taking her seat at the table. The applause continues for several seconds. "Thank you," Ariana says softly, laughing a little as the cheering continues. "That's very sweet." Whoopi nods. "Nice to have you here." "Thank you for having me," Ariana replies. Joy Behar leans forward slightly with a grin. "Look at this audience. They're already on your side." The crowd laughs and claps again. Ariana smiles. "I appreciate that very much." The tone at the table is relaxed at first. Sunny Hostin jumps in first. "So you've had an incredible year. New music, huge streaming numbers, and fans just seem more connected to you than ever. What's been the most exciting part of this chapter for you?" Ariana nods thoughtfully. "I think honestly, just being able to create again without feeling like I have to rush anything. I've learned to slow down and really enjoy the process." The audience applauds lightly. Alyssa Farah Griffin nods. "That's something a lot of artists struggle with, especially when there's so much pressure to constantly deliver." "Exactly," Ariana says. "There's always this expectation that you have to keep topping the last thing you did. And sometimes you just want to make music because you love it." Whoopi listens quietly, hands folded on the table. "So let me ask you something," Whoopi says. The tone is still calm, but the table grows a little quieter. "You've been in this industry since you were a teenager. You've grown up in front of millions of people. And with that comes a lot of attention, sometimes good, sometimes not so good." Ariana nods slowly. "Right," Whoopi continues. "And lately there's been a lot of conversation online about celebrity influence, how stars handle fame, how they respond to criticism, and whether younger fans look up to them in ways that maybe weren't intended." The audience shifts slightly, sensing a change in tone. Ariana keeps her smile but sits up a little straighter. "Sure." Whoopi looks directly at her. "Do you ever feel like, maybe sometimes the message gets lost? That people see the celebrity image more than the actual person?" Ariana pauses for a moment. "I think that happens to everyone in the public eye." Joy nods. "That's definitely true." Ariana continues. "But I also think people underestimate how aware artists are of that responsibility." The audience claps lightly. Whoopi tilts her head slightly. "But responsibility is interesting," she says. "Because some people would argue that when you have millions of followers, what you say and how you act matters even more." Ariana nods again. "I agree with that." Sunny leans forward. "And Ariana, you've also been very open about mental health, about the pressures of fame, and about how the internet can amplify criticism." "Yeah," Ariana says quietly. "It can be a lot." Joy jumps in with a lighter tone. "The internet can be brutal." The audience laughs. "But," Joy continues, "you've handled it pretty well." Ariana smiles politely. "I try." Whoopi glances down briefly before looking back up. "But some critics say that celebrities sometimes talk about pressure while still benefiting from the attention that creates it." The audience grows quieter again. Ariana's expression becomes more serious now. "Well, I think two things can exist at the same time," she says carefully. "You can be grateful for success and still talk honestly about the challenges that come with it." A few audience members clap. Whoopi nods slowly. "That's fair." But she doesn't move on yet. "You've also had moments where social media reacted strongly to things you've said or done," Whoopi continues. "And sometimes the reaction from fans becomes intense." Ariana looks at her. "In what way?" "Well," Whoopi says, choosing her words, "some people say that celebrity fanbases can become protective to the point where criticism gets shut down." The audience murmurs softly. Joy raises her eyebrows slightly. Ariana sits quietly for a second before answering. I don't control how people on the internet react. That's true, Whoopi says. But do you ever feel a responsibility to step in when things get heated? Ariana nods slowly. Yes. And I actually do that more often than people realize. Sunny looks curious. Like when? Well, Ariana says, there have been times where I've asked fans to be respectful, to not attack people online. Because that's not what I stand for. The audience claps again. Whoopi listens, but her expression remains thoughtful. But critics would say, Whoopi continues, that sometimes the message comes after the damage is already done. The room grows noticeably quieter. Ariana's smile fades slightly now. Respectfully, she says, I don't think it's fair to hold one person responsible for millions of strangers online. A few audience members clap louder. Joy glances at Whoopi, sensing the tension beginning to build. Whoopi doesn't back down. I'm not saying you're responsible for everything, she says calmly. But influence is influence. Ariana nods. Yes. And with that influence, Whoopi adds, comes scrutiny. Ariana takes a breath. I understand that. Then she looks directly at Whoopi. But I also think sometimes people talk about celebrities like we're not human beings. The audience reacts with louder applause. Sunny nods quickly. That's a good point. Ariana continues, her voice still calm but more firm now. People see headlines, tweets, and clips online, and they think that tells the whole story about someone's character. The crowd claps again. Joy smiles slightly, sensing the conversation heating up. Well, this is getting interesting, Joy says lightly. A few people laugh. Whoopi looks at Ariana carefully. So let me ask you directly, she says. Do you think the criticism you receive is unfair? Ariana pauses again. Then she answers. Some of it is fair, she admits. But some of it comes from assumptions that aren't actually based on reality. The audience murmurs. Whoopi leans forward slightly. And when you say assumptions, what do you mean? Ariana looks around the table briefly before answering. I mean that sometimes people who have never met you, never spoken to you, never worked with you, decide who you are anyway. The audience claps louder. Joy leans back in her chair. Well, she's not wrong about that. But Whoopi isn't finished yet. Let me push back just a little, Whoopi says. Because when you choose to live in the public eye, people are going to have opinions. Ariana nods slowly. I know. Then she adds quietly. But opinions and judgments aren't always the same thing. The audience reacts with a mix of applause and murmurs. The energy at the table has clearly shifted now. What started as a routine celebrity interview is slowly becoming something else. Real debate about fame, responsibility, and criticism. Joy looks between Ariana and Whoopi with a half smile. Well, she says, this is why people watch this show. The audience laughs nervously. And Ariana sits back in her chair, clearly calm, but no longer just politely answering questions. Now she's fully engaged in the conversation. And the tension at the table is only beginning to build. The audience is still reacting to Ariana's last comment, a mix of applause and murmurs moving through the studio. The table is quiet for a moment as everyone processes the shift in the conversation. Whoopi Goldberg leans back slightly in her chair, looking thoughtful but still focused. Well, she says slowly, let's talk about that for a second. Because you're right, people do make assumptions. But that also comes with the territory when you're one of the most famous people in the world. Ariana nods once. I understand that. Joy Behar jumps in with a small smile. And let's be honest, Joy says, looking toward the audience, people love having opinions about celebrities. The audience laughs. Sunny Hostin nods. That's true. Social media has made that even bigger. Ariana speaks again, still calm but clearly more engaged now. I don't mind opinions. People are allowed to have them. What I struggle with sometimes is when those opinions turn into narratives about who you are as a person. A few people in the audience clap. Whoopi watches her closely. But isn't that also part of public life? Whoopi asks. Politicians deal with it. Actors deal with it. Musicians deal with it. Ariana nods. Yes, but the difference now is that the conversation never stops. The audience murmurs in agreement. She continues. You wake up and there are thousands of comments about something you said, something you wore, something someone thinks you meant even if that wasn't the intention. Joy chuckles. Oh, trust me, we know. The audience laughs. Sunny leans in. That's true. People react to clips without context all the time. Ariana nods again. Exactly. Whoopi folds her hands again on the table. But Ariana, you've also been very vocal online yourself. You've addressed critics, you've responded to rumors, you've spoken directly to fans. Yes, Ariana says. And sometimes, Whoopi continues, when celebrities respond, it can make the conversation even bigger. Ariana pauses. That's possible. Joy raises an eyebrow. Sometimes it pours gasoline on the fire, she jokes. The audience laughs again. Ariana smiles slightly. Maybe. Then she adds more seriously. But staying silent can also allow false things to spread. A few audience members clap. Sunny nods quickly. That's true. Whoopi tilts her head slightly. So how do you decide when to respond and when to ignore it? Ariana thinks for a moment. I try to respond when something affects people I care about or when something is just completely untrue. The audience murmurs again. Joy glances toward Whoopi. Fair enough. But Whoopi presses further. Let me bring up something broader, she says. The room grows quiet again. There's been a lot of discussion lately about celebrity culture, about how fame works today, about how fans defend their favorite stars online, sometimes very aggressively. Ariana listens without interrupting. And some critics say, Whoopi continues, that celebrities benefit from that loyalty while also distancing themselves when things get out of hand. The audience shifts again, sensing the tension returning. Joy lets out a small under her breath. Ariana leans forward slightly. I think that's a complicated topic. How so? Whoopi asks. Well, Ariana says carefully, fans support artists because they connect with the music or the work. That relationship isn't something you control. Sunny nods. That's true. But, Ariana continues, when fans take things too far, I've always said that's not okay. The audience claps again. Whoopi responds quickly. But critics say those messages don't always reach the loudest voices. Ariana looks directly at her. I can only speak for what I do. Joy glances between them. Well, this is turning into a real debate. The audience laughs nervously. Whoopi keeps her tone calm but firm. Let me ask something else, she says. When people criticize celebrities, not in a hateful way, but in a critical way, do you think that's healthy? Ariana nods immediately. Yes. The audience seems surprised. Whoopi raises her eyebrows. You do? Yes, Ariana says. Constructive criticism is important. Nobody grows without it. Sunny smiles. That's a mature answer. But Ariana continues. The problem is when criticism turns into assumptions about your character. The audience claps again. Joy leans forward now. So you're saying there's a difference between criticizing someone's work and criticizing who they are as a person? Exactly, Ariana says. Whoopi nods slowly. But some people would say that public figures invite that level of scrutiny. Ariana looks calm, but there's a firmness in her voice now. I don't think anyone invites people questioning their humanity. The audience lets out an audible reaction, a mixture of applause and murmurs. Joy turns slightly toward the audience. Okay, that got a reaction. Whoopi remains composed. I'm not questioning your humanity, she says. I'm talking about the reality of fame. Ariana nods. And I'm talking about the reality of being a human being inside that
You're
fame.
clearly passionate about
The audience
this.
claps louder now.
Ariana nods.
Sunny smiles
Because
slightly,
I've lived it,
sensing the
The
moment.
room grows quiet
That's
again.
a powerful way to
Then
put it.
Ariana continues.
Whoopi, her voice calm but more personal now. When you start in this industry young, people grow up watching you. They think they know everything about you. The audience listens closely. But the truth is, Ariana says, they're seeing pieces of a person, not the whole person. Joy nods slowly. That's a fair point. But Whoopi asks another question. Do you think sometimes celebrities also contribute to that by sharing so much of their lives online? Ariana pauses again. Yes, she admits. The audience murmurs. I think social media changed everything, she continues. It created this illusion that everyone has full access to your life. Sunny nods. And then people feel entitled to comment on everything. Exactly, Ariana says. Whoopi raises an eyebrow slightly. But celebrities also benefit from that connection with fans. Yes, Ariana agrees. But that doesn't mean the boundaries disappear. The audience claps again. Joy leans back in her chair. Well, she's holding her own today. The crowd laughs and applauds. But Whoopi still looks thoughtful. Let me ask you something directly, she says. The studio quiets again. Do you ever feel like celebrities get too defensive when people question them? Ariana looks at her carefully. Sometimes. The audience murmurs again. Then Ariana adds, but I also think sometimes the questions themselves come from assumptions. A few people clap. Whoopi looks curious. What kind of assumptions? Ariana pauses for a second. Then she says something that makes the entire room go quiet. The assumption that fame somehow makes someone less deserving of empathy. The audience reacts immediately with louder applause. Joy whistles softly. Okay. Sunny nods. That's a statement. Whoopi watches Ariana for a long moment. And then she says calmly, Ariana, some people might say you're pushing back pretty strongly today. Ariana smiles slightly. I'm just being honest. The audience claps again. Joy laughs. And that's what makes good television. But the tension at the table is unmistakable now. What started as a friendly conversation about music and fame has slowly turned into a real back and forth. Two strong perspectives meeting live on television. And the audience can feel that the conversation is only getting more intense. The applause from Ariana's last comment slowly fades, but the energy in the room is completely different now than it was at the start of the interview. What began as a routine talk show segment has clearly shifted into a deeper conversation, one that neither the hosts nor the audience expected when Ariana first walked onto the stage. Joy Behar leans forward, looking between Ariana and Whoopi Goldberg with a half-amused expression. Well, this got real, she says, drawing a laugh from the audience. Ariana smiles politely, but doesn't back away from the conversation. Whoopi remains composed, her posture relaxed but attentive. Sunny Hostin jumps in, trying to balance the discussion. I actually think this is a really important conversation, she says, because the relationship between celebrities and the public has changed a lot in the last 10 years. The audience nods and murmurs in agreement. Sunny turns to Ariana. You mentioned empathy just a moment ago, and I think that word is really interesting in this context, because there's a lot of debate about whether the public should feel empathy for celebrities who live very privileged lives. Ariana listens carefully. That's fair, she says. I understand why people think that way. Whoopi raises her eyebrows slightly. So you understand the criticism? Yes, Ariana says calmly. But understanding criticism doesn't mean agreeing with every narrative that comes with it. A few audience members clap. Joy chuckles. And that's where things get spicy. The audience laughs again. But Whoopi leans forward slightly now, clearly wanting to clarify something. Let me make something clear, she says, looking directly at Ariana. No one here is saying you're not human. That's not the point. Ariana nods once. I didn't say you were. The audience reacts with a mix of laughter and murmurs at the quick response. Joy turns to the audience. Oh, we've got a little back and forth today. More laughter. Whoopi smiles briefly, acknowledging the moment. What I'm saying, Whoopi continues, is that when someone becomes as influential as you are, people are going to question things. That's not cruelty. That's part of the cultural conversation. Ariana takes a breath before answering. I think questioning public figures is healthy. Sunny nods. Absolutely. But, Ariana adds, there's a difference between questioning someone's work or decisions and creating a version of them that isn't real. The audience claps again. Joy glances toward Whoopi. She keeps coming back to that point. Whoopi nods thoughtfully, because clearly it's something she's experienced. Ariana looks at her and speaks a little more directly now. Yes, many times. The room quiets again. Ariana continues. There have been times where headlines about me spread around the world within hours, and the people writing them never spoke to me. The audience murmurs. Sunny nods slowly. That happens a lot in media. Ariana continues. And then suddenly millions of people are reacting to something that isn't even accurate. Joy raises her eyebrows. Well, that sounds familiar. The audience laughs again. Whoopi keeps her voice calm. But Ariana, media criticism isn't new. It's been happening to public figures for decades. I know, Ariana replies. But the scale is different now. She gestures slightly toward the audience. One tweet can turn into a global story within minutes. The crowd murmurs again. Sunny nods. That's definitely true. Whoopi crosses her arms loosely. So what would you want to change about that? Ariana pauses for a moment, clearly thinking. Honestly, yes, Whoopi says. I'd like people to remember that celebrities are still people living real lives behind the headlines. The audience applauds warmly. Joy nods. That's a reasonable request. But Whoopi raises a thoughtful point. Some critics would argue that celebrities also control their image very carefully, through PR teams, publicists, branding. Ariana smiles slightly. That's true. So when people question that image, Whoopi continues, They're engaging with the version of you that's been presented to them. Ariana leans forward slightly now. But that's exactly the point. The audience quiets again. The version presented isn't the whole person, Ariana says. Sunny watches closely. That's interesting. Ariana continues. People see performances, interviews, social media posts. Those are moments, not a full human life. Joy nods slowly. That's a good distinction. But Whoopi pushes once more. So when people challenge that image, you don't think that's fair? Ariana answers immediately. It can be fair. The audience murmurs. But sometimes it crosses a line into assuming someone's intentions, their character, their morals, without actually knowing them. A wave of applause moves through the studio. Joy laughs softly. She's making her case. Whoopi smiles faintly. And she's making it well. But then Whoopi says something that shifts the conversation again. You know what some viewers might say watching this right now? Ariana looks at her. What? They might say, you chose this life. The audience reacts with a mix of claps and murmurs. Joy nods slowly. That's definitely something people say. Ariana takes a moment before responding. I did choose to make music, she says calmly. The room grows quiet. But I didn't choose to have strangers decide who I am as a person. The audience bursts into applause. Sunny nods firmly. That's a powerful distinction. Whoopi listens carefully, then responds. But public perception has always been part of celebrity. Yes, Ariana says. But there's a difference between perception and projection. The audience reacts again. Joy turns toward the crowd. Okay, that line's going viral. Laughter spreads across the room. But Ariana continues, her voice steady. Perception is based on what people actually see. Projection is when people fill in the blanks with their own assumptions. The audience applauds again, louder this time. Whoopi sits back slightly, studying Ariana. You're very thoughtful about this. Ariana nods. Because I've had to be. Sunny smiles. I can imagine. Joy glances toward Whoopi again. So where do we go from here? Whoopi sighs lightly but smiles. Well, first of all, this is exactly the kind of conversation this table is meant for. The audience applauds. And second, Whoopi continues, I think it's healthy that we can disagree and still talk about it. Ariana nods immediately. I agree with that. The tension at the table softens slightly, but the energy is still intense. Joy laughs. I'll tell you one thing. Nobody watching at home thought this interview was going to turn into a philosophy discussion about fame. The audience laughs loudly. Ariana smiles again. Me neither. Whoopi chuckles. But here we are. The crowd applauds. And while the tone is lighter again for the moment, everyone in the studio can feel that the conversation has crossed into deeper territory. What started as a casual celebrity interview has become a real debate about fame, media, criticism, and humanity, happening live in front of a national audience. The conversation at the table has clearly reached a different level than anyone expected when the segment began. The audience is still buzzing from the back and forth between Ariana Grande and Whoopi Goldberg. What started as a typical talk show interview has turned into one of those rare live TV moments where real perspectives collide in real time. Joy Behar glances toward the audience and laughs softly. Well, this has definitely been one of the more interesting conversations we've had in a while. The audience applauds and laughs. Sunny Hostin nods. That's the beauty of live television. You never know where the conversation is going to go. Ariana smiles, sitting a little more relaxed now than she was a few minutes ago. I actually appreciate conversations like this, she says honestly. Even when there's disagreement. Whoopi nods slowly. And that's how it should be, she says. If everybody agreed all the time, this show would be pretty boring. The audience laughs loudly. Joy raises her hand jokingly. Speak for yourself, Whoopi. I love being right. More laughter fills the studio. The tension that had built earlier is beginning to ease, but the audience can still feel the weight of the conversation that just happened. Sunny turns back to Ariana. You know, something you said earlier really stuck with me. The idea that perception and projection are two different things. Ariana nods. Yeah, Sunny continues. I think that applies to a lot of people in the public eye, not just musicians. The audience murmurs in agreement. Whoopi leans forward slightly again, but this time her tone is softer. Look, she says. I may ask tough questions sometimes, but it's not because I'm trying to attack anyone. It's because these are conversations people are already having at home. Ariana nods respectfully. I understand that. Whoopi continues. And I'll say this, you handled yourself very well today. The audience claps. Ariana smiles. Thank you. I appreciate that. Joy jumps in with a grin. See? Nobody threw a shoe. That's always a good sign. The audience bursts into laughter again. Ariana laughs too. I promise I came in peace. Sunny chuckles. Well, we appreciate that. Whoopi looks toward the camera briefly before turning back to Ariana. You've clearly thought a lot about fame and the pressure that comes with it, she says. And I think people watching today probably got to see a side of you they might not have expected. Ariana nods thoughtfully. I hope they saw that I'm just a person trying to do my job and grow like everyone else. The audience applauds warmly. Joy gestures toward the crowd. Well, you definitely have some supporters here. The cheering grows louder for a moment. Then Whoopi glances toward the studio clock. And unfortunately, she says, we're almost out of time. The audience lets out a collective, ah. Joy points toward the crowd. See, they want another round. More laughter. Sunny smiles at Ariana. Before we go, what's next for you? New music? More acting? Ariana brightens slightly. Yes, actually. I've been working on new music, and I'm really excited about sharing it when the time feels right. The audience claps again. Joy nods. Well, when it drops, you know where to come back and talk about it. Ariana laughs. I'll remember that. Whoopi extends her hand across the table. Well, thank you for coming on and having a real conversation with us. Ariana shakes her hand. Thank you for having me. The audience applauds loudly as the segment wraps. The cameras begin to pull back slightly while the hosts smile toward the audience, and the show transitions toward a commercial break. But even as the applause continues, people in the studio are already whispering about what just happened. Because it wasn't just a celebrity interview. It was a moment. Later that afternoon, clips of the exchange between Ariana Grande and Whoopi Goldberg begin spreading across social media. Within minutes, short video clips appear on platforms everywhere. Viewers debate the conversation intensely. Some people praise Ariana for standing her ground. Others say, Whoopi asked the tough questions that many people were thinking. Hashtags begin trending, with fans posting their reactions to the conversation. Some viewers comment on how calm Ariana remained during the discussion. Others highlight the moment when she said, there's a difference between perception and projection, calling it the quote of the day. Fans flood comment sections defending their favorite artist. Meanwhile, others praise the hosts of The View for allowing the debate to unfold naturally instead of cutting it off. Talk shows, entertainment blogs, and YouTube commentary channels start breaking down the exchange. Some call it one of the most candid celebrity conversations on daytime TV that week. Others focus on the tension between Ariana and Whoopi, analyzing every facial expression and response. Within hours, the moment becomes a trending topic in entertainment media. Meanwhile, behind the scenes at the studio, the atmosphere is far calmer than what viewers online might imagine. After the cameras stop rolling, Ariana spends a few minutes talking casually with the hosts. Staff members move around the set preparing for the next segment. Audience members who attended the show begin leaving the studio still talking about what they just watched live. Some say they respected Ariana's honesty. Others say they appreciated Whoopi pushing the conversation deeper. And that's exactly the kind of moment that daytime talk shows are known for. Unscripted discussions where different perspectives collide. By the evening, the interview is everywhere online. Clips continue circulating. Fans debate. Critics debate. And millions of viewers who didn't watch the episode live are now seeing the conversation for themselves. Because when strong personalities meet on a show built around debate, moments like this are bound to happen. And sometimes those moments turn into the most memorable segments of the entire season. If you watched this exchange, we want to know what you think. Was Ariana Grande right to push back? Did Whoopi Goldberg ask the tough questions that needed to be asked? Or do you think the conversation went too far? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to Talk Show Fallout for more real talk show stories.